In 1929, the richest heir in California walked into a bedroom at Greystone Mansion and never walked out. Was it madness, a secret affair, or a cover-up that cost billions? Stand at the gates of Greystone Park on any quiet Tuesday afternoon, and you might mistake it for paradise. The limestone facade glows honey gold in the California sun. Perfectly manicured lawns cascade down 18 acres of Beverly Hills real estate worth more than small nations. Tourists snap photographs of the Gothic Revival architecture, the arched windows, the ornamental stonework that speaks of old money and older dreams. Film crews arrive weekly to capture its elegance for movies and commercials. Wedding parties pose on its terraces, brides in white against walls of grey stone. Everyone smiling as if nothing bad could ever happen in a place this beautiful. But beauty is not innocence. Walk closer. Let your footsteps echo on the same paths where servants once hurried, where children played, where a family lived their gilded life. 46,000 square feet of mansion sprawls before you. 55 rooms filled with what remains when a dynasty ends. The city of Beverly Hills owns it now, maintains it, opens it for tours and special events. They will tell you about the architecture, the craftsmanship, the historical significance. They will mention, briefly, almost apologetically, that something terrible happened here once. A tragedy, they call it. An incident. As if those words could contain what happened in an upstairs bedroom on a winter night in 1929. The guest bedroom no longer exists, not as it was. Repainted, remodeled, stripped of every surface that might remember. But the walls remain. Stone does not forget. 2 men died in that room. One was the heir to one of America's greatest fortunes, a young father with everything to live for. The other was his secretary, his companion, his shadow. The official story was written within hours. Murder-suicide, case closed, nothing to see here. But the gun bore no fingerprints. The evidence disappeared faster than it could be catalogued. Witnesses gave statements that contradicted each other and were never reconciled. The district attorney, who owed the family $75,000 in loans, asked no difficult questions. The coroner's inquest rushed to its conclusion as if speed could somehow make the deaths less suspicious. And the family, one of the richest in California, wanted it buried. So it was buried. Walk through Greystone's grand entrance hall today, and the silence feels heavy, pregnant with everything unsaid. Your voice echoes too loud. Your footsteps sound like intrusions. The house tolerates visitors but does not welcome them. It stands as it was built to stand, magnificent, impenetrable, keeping its secrets behind walls that money built and tragedy sealed. This is not a house that invites easy answers. This is not a story that ends neatly. What happened here on that February night has spawned decades of whispers, theories, accusations that can never be proven because the proof was scrubbed away before the bodies were cold. Was it murder? Was it suicide? Was it both? Was it something else entirely, something the 1920s could not speak aloud and the family could not allow the world to know? The dead cannot tell us. The living chose silence. But the mansion remains. Greystone stands as witness to what wealth can build and what it cannot protect against. All the millions that poured into its construction, all the careful planning and architectural genius, all the dreams of a father who wanted to give his son everything, none of it could prevent what happened in that upstairs room. None of it could buy truth when truth became inconvenient. None of it could resurrect 2 men whose deaths raised more questions than a dozen investigations could ever answer. To understand what happened at Greystone, we must go back, before the gunshots, before the mansion, before the fortune that made it all possible. We must return to the beginning, to the California dirt, where a failed prospector struck liquid gold and set in motion a tragedy that would echo through generations. We must meet the man who built an empire on oil and tried to build his son's happiness on stone. Before there was a mansion, there was oil. Black gold erupting from California earth, transforming failure into fortune, poverty into power beyond measure. And before the oil, there was a man who had spent 20 years wandering the American West with nothing but determination and dust in his pockets. Edward Lawrence Doheny was born in 1856 in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, son of an Irish laborer who had fled County Tipperary during the Great Famine. His father Patrick worked construction and tended gardens. His mother Ellen had been a school teacher in Newfoundland. They gave their son little except ambition and the conviction that America owed a man whatever he could take from it. Young Edward graduated high school at 15 as valedictorian, but his father's death months later ended any dreams of further education. What followed were 2 decades of failure. Doheny worked for the U.S. Geological Survey, then left to prospect in the Black Hills of South Dakota, Arizona Territory, New Mexico Territory. He dug for gold and found nothing. He worked as a mule driver, a fruit packer, even a singing waiter. He married his first wife, Carrie, in the hard-scrabble mining town of Kingston, New Mexico, in 1883. They had a daughter, Eileen. But the mines yielded no fortune, and Doheny found himself reduced to painting houses to feed his family. By 1891, approaching middle age, Edward Doheny had nothing to show for his years of labor, except calloused hands and a persistent belief that fortune waited somewhere just beyond the next hill. His friend Charles Canfield, who had struck it rich in New Mexico mines and lost Los Angeles real estate, urged him westward. Doheny packed what little his family owned and moved to Los Angeles, where Canfield had settled. It was a city still raw, still becoming itself, where fortunes were being made in land speculation and lost just as quickly. Doheny and his family lived in a downtown boarding house where they could not always pay the rent. The city's boom had collapsed. Canfield himself had lost his real estate fortune. 2 middle-aged men who had chased wealth their entire lives found themselves starting over in a city that offered no guarantees. Then came the day that changed everything. Doheny noticed an African-American wagon driver passing by with a load of dark, greasy substance. He stopped the man and asked what it was. "Brea," came the reply. "Tar" in Spanish. The driver had collected it from an empty lot near Westlake Park, where it oozed from the ground. A nearby factory was burning it for fuel. Doheny took a streetcar to that lot and stood looking at the black ooze seeping from the earth. Most men would have seen waste, pollution, the stuff you paved roads with. Doheny saw the future. He persuaded Canfield to put up $400 to lease a piece of land nearby. Using a sharpened tree trunk as a drill, in April 1893 at 200 feet, they struck oil. Not much at first. The well was small, but it pumped steadily, and while it pumped, Doheny dreamed larger. He envisioned a Los Angeles powered not by coal, but by petroleum. He saw ships crossing the Pacific burning fuel oil instead of hauling tons of coal in their holds. He saw locomotives pulling freight across the continent with oil-fired engines. His success set off a petroleum boom in Southern California. Within a few years, more than 3,000 oil wells punctured the Los Angeles basin. The city smelled of crude. Derricks rose like iron forests. Money flowed as thick as the oil itself. By 1902, Doheny sold his California properties and turned his attention to Mexico, drilling the first oil well in that nation in 1901 in Tampico's Golden Belt. While other men worried about political instability south of the border, Doheny saw opportunity. He leased 1 million acres around Tampico on the Gulf of Mexico. His Mexican Petroleum Company became the largest oil company in Mexico, building roads, cities, railroads, pipelines. The Mexican Revolution erupted in 1910, plunging the country into chaos. Doheny hired his own private army to protect his oil fields. While Mexico tore itself apart, his wells kept pumping. By 1922, his Mexican operations had brought him $31 million. He opened new fields in Venezuela's Lake Maracaibo. His Pan American Petroleum and Transport Company became one of the largest oil corporations in the world. By 1925, Doheny's net worth passed $100 million. He was richer than John D. Rockefeller himself. A man who had once painted, houses for wages now controlled an empire. He owned a mansion in Los Angeles that covered an entire city block. He traveled in a private railroad car. He gave millions to Catholic charities and universities. He moved among presidents and cabinet members as an equal, a self-made titan who had clawed his way from nothing to everything. And he had a son, Edward Lawrence Doheny Jr., called Ned, his only boy. The child for whom all this wealth had been accumulated, the heir who would inherit not just money, but the dynasty Edward Sr. had built from California tar and Mexican crude. For this son, the old protospector would build something more than an oil empire. He would build a monument, a palace, a place where Ned and his family could live surrounded by beauty and security, protected by walls thick enough to keep out the world and all its dangers. He would build Greystone, and in building it, he would create the stage for a tragedy that no amount of money could prevent. In 1926, Edward Doheny gave his son a parcel of land on a hilltop in Beverly Hills, 12.58 acres of prime real estate overlooking what was still a sleepy village, transforming itself into a playground for the wealthy. The land commanded sweeping views across Los Angeles to the Pacific Ocean beyond. It was the kind of gift only an oil baron could give. The kind of gesture that said, "I have conquered the earth, and now I place a piece of it at your feet." Ned married Lucy Smith of Pasadena in June 1914. By 1926, they had 5 children who needed a home worthy of their grandfather's fortune. Edward Sr. commissioned Gordon Kaufman, one of Southern California's most prominent architects, to design something extraordinary. Kaufman had designed banks and commercial buildings throughout Los Angeles. He would later create the Hoover Dam and the Los Angeles Times building. But Greystone would become his residential masterpiece. Construction began on February 15, 1927. The P.J. Walker Company of San Francisco took on the massive project. Landscape architect Paul Thien was brought in to create grounds that would match the mansion's grandeur. His chief designer later recalled that the instructions were simple. The sky was the limit, and so they built without limits. The mansion rose on foundations of steel-reinforced concrete, its frame designed to withstand earthquakes that periodically shook Southern California. But the structural engineering was hidden beneath surfaces that spoke of older, more permanent power. The exterior walls were faced with Indiana limestone, 3 feet thick, imported across the continent. The stone gave the building its name, its gray appearance standing somber and solid against the bright California sky. The roof was shingled with Welsh slate, each piece 3 to 4 inches thick, laid in varying colors to create depth and texture. Even the gutters beneath the eaves were constructed of solid lead. Kaufman designed the mansion in Tudor Revival style, all asymmetrical massing and steeply pitched roof lines, turrets and ornamental stonework that evoked the manor houses of the English countryside. But this was no mere imitation. Gothic elements mixed with neoclassical details. The architecture was eclectic, ambitious, pulling from centuries of European tradition and adapting it for California wealth. Inside, craftsmen created spaces that would have impressed European nobility. The entrance hall featured black and white inlaid Carrara marble in a checkerboard pattern that drew the eye toward a grand staircase. Every oak banister, every balustrade, every decorative rafter was hand-carved. The arch-framed stairway became the centerpiece, its details so intricate that each piece seemed to flow into the next without visible seam or joint. 7 chimneys rose through the structure, each one designed by a different craftsman, each one unique in its detailing. The scale was staggering. 46,000 square feet of living space, 55 major rooms spreading across 2 floors and attics, a bowling alley with regulation lanes and a hidden bar, a projection theater for private film screenings, billiard rooms and libraries, guest suites that were larger than most families' entire homes, walls lined with leaded glass windows imported from Europe, a personal telephone switchboard to manage calls throughout the estate, secret passageways built into the walls for servants to move unseen, room after room filled with European antiques purchased without regard for cost. Outside, Thien transformed the hillside into a fantasy of water and green. An 80-foot waterfall that could be switched on at will cascaded down manufactured rocks. A lake reflected the sky. Brooks babbled through carefully landscaped gardens that mixed formal English design with California vegetation. The Renaissance-inspired Cypress Lane became a walkway of such beauty that decades later, people would still speak of it with awe. There were stables for horses, kennels for dogs, tennis courts for recreation, a swimming pool and pavilion, a greenhouse for growing flowers year-round, even a fire station to protect the estate from the brush fires that periodically swept through Southern California hills. The grounds eventually sprawled across more than 400 acres, making it the largest family estate in Beverly Hills history. The Doheny property dominated the hillside, a kingdom unto itself. The cost approached the unimaginable. The mansion alone required $1,238,000. The full estate, with all its outbuildings and landscaping, totaled $3,166,000. In the 1920s, when a comfortable house could be built for $5,000, when an average worker earned $1,500 per year, the Doheny estate represented wealth almost impossible to comprehend. It was the most expensive home ever built in California. Construction continued for 3 years, though the Doheny family moved into the residence in September 1928, even while work continued on the grounds and finishing details. Ned, Lucy, and their 5 children took possession of rooms so vast that their voices echoed. They walked on marble imported from Italian quarries. They slept beneath ceilings painted by artists. They woke each morning to views that stretched to the ocean. Edward Doheny Sr. had built his son a monument. More than a home, it was a declaration. The Doheny name would endure. The fortune would last. The family had arrived not just at wealth, but at permanence, the kind of solidity that stone walls and slate roofs represented. Oil had been pumped from the earth, transformed into money, and then transformed again into something that would outlast them all. No one standing in those completed rooms in the autumn of 1928, admiring the craftsmanship and the views, could have imagined how quickly tragedy would arrive. No one watching the family settle into their palace could have foreseen that in less than 5 months, these beautiful walls would witness violence that would haunt the estate forever. The mansion was ready. The family was installed. The stage was set. And waiting in the wings was Hugh Plunkett, the man who had overseen the construction, who had paid the contractor's bills with checks bearing Ned Doheny's name, who had managed every detail of bringing this dream into existence. He had built Greystone as much as any architect or craftsman. Soon, he would be found dead within its walls, his blood on its floors, his presence erased from its history, as thoroughly as the guest bedroom would later be scrubbed clean. Edward Lawrence Doheny Jr. seemed born under a fortunate star. Handsome, with dark hair and a charming smile that made people trust him instantly. Educated at private Catholic schools before spending a year at Stanford, then graduating from the University of Southern California. Married in June 1914 to Lucy Smith of Pasadena, daughter of railroad executive William Smith. father to 5 children who would grow up surrounded by unimaginable wealth. The only son of one of the richest men in America, heir to an oil empire that stretched from California to Mexico to Venezuela. But those who looked closely saw something else beneath the polish. A young man who idolized his father but could never escape his shadow. A man who seemed perpetually pleasant, easygoing, funny, yet somehow always accompanied by another person who managed the details of his life. That person was Theodore Hugh Plunkett. Hugh was born in Kansas in March 1896, 9 years after Ned. He came to Los Angeles with his family in 1912, a working-class young man who took a job as a mechanic at a service station owned by William Smith. When Lucy Smith began courting young Ned Doheny, Hugh worked on the Doheny family vehicles. He was hired as their chauffeur. He was polite, capable, good with machines and schedules. The Dohenys liked him. More importantly, Ned liked him. When the Great War erupted, both young men enlisted on the same day. Ned became a lieutenant. Hugh served as a machinist's mate on a submarine chaser. They came home from the war changed, as most men did, and Hugh's role in the Doheny household changed as well. He became Ned's confidential secretary. More than an employee, more than a servant. Something closer to family, but not quite family either. He accompanied Ned everywhere. Business trips, social engagements. He managed Ned's calendar, handled his correspondence, signed checks in his name for hundreds of thousands of dollars. When the Dohenys christened their youngest son, they named him Timothy Hugh Doheny, in Hugh's honor. It was an extraordinary gesture, naming a child of one of California's richest families after the chauffeur's son who had become the trusted secretary. The relationship made people uncomfortable. Family members whispered. Associates noticed how much time the two men spent together, often away from Lucy and the children. Some called it friendship. Others used words that in 1929 were spoken only in shadows. Then came November 28th, 1921, the day that would seal both their fates. Edward Doheny Sr. needed someone to deliver a package to Albert Fall, the Secretary of the Interior. Fall was an old friend, a fellow Westerner who understood how things worked. The package contained $100,000 in cash, 5 stacks of $20,000 each, wrapped in paper, placed inside a black leather satchel. It was called a loan. Everyone who mattered understood it was a bribe in exchange for drilling rights to the naval oil reserves at Elk Hills in California. Ned and Hugh carried that black bag to Fall's apartment at the Wardman Park Hotel in Washington. They watched him count the money. They shook his hand. They returned to California believing the matter settled. But nothing in Washington stays settled. By 1924, Senate investigators had uncovered the deal. The Teapot Dome scandal, they called it, after another naval reserve in Wyoming that had been similarly leased. Newspapers screamed corruption. Congress demanded answers. Albert Fall resigned in disgrace, then faced indictment. Edward Doheny Sr. testified before the Senate, admitting the payment, but insisting it was merely a loan between old friends. No one believed him. The Supreme Court ruled in 1927 that the oil leases had been corruptly obtained. Fall was convicted of accepting bribes and sentenced to prison, the first cabinet member in American history to serve time for a felony committed in office. But Edward Doheny Sr. faced his own trials. 2 of them. First for conspiracy, then for bribery. And the Sarhat, key witnesses in both cases would be the 2 young men who had actually carried the black bag, Ned Doheny and Hugh Plunkett. The weight of it pressed down on both of them. Ned, who had always tried to please his father, now found himself the instrument of his father's potential destruction. Hugh, who owed everything to the Doheny family, who had been lifted from changing tires to signing checks for millions, faced the prospect of testifying against the people who had made his life possible. The strain showed most clearly in Hugh. Those who knew him noticed changes. The quiet, even-tempered young man became agitated, erratic. He divorced his wife in 1928 after 12 years of marriage. He began experiencing what people around him described as nervous episodes. Some said he was unraveling. Others used the word unhinged. Ned suggested that Hugh might benefit from time in a sanitarium. Not an asylum, nothing so harsh. Just a place to rest, to calm down, to escape the pressure of the impending trials. But Hugh refused. The suggestion itself seemed to make things worse, as if Ned were trying to silence him, to make him unavailable for testimony by declaring him mentally incompetent. Through it all, Hugh continued living on the Greystone estate in a guest house, continued managing Ned's affairs, continued occupying a position that had no clear definition. Was he an employee? A friend? Something else entirely that polite society could not acknowledge? The tension built through the fall and winter of 1928 as the family moved into their magnificent new home. The mansion stood complete, 55 rooms filled with European antiques and handcrafted details. But the beauty could not mask what everyone knew. Testimony was coming. The trials would resume. Ned and Hugh would have to stand before judges and juries and recount what they had done in that Washington hotel room. Edward Doheny Sr.'s first trial ended in acquittal in late 1926. 400 supporters met his train in Los Angeles. The mayor called him a great American patriot. But another trial loomed, this one specifically for bribery. And this time, the prosecution would be better prepared. This time, they would focus on the money, the bag, the two young men who delivered it. Ned Doheny walked the halls of his new mansion in early 1929, knowing that his testimony could send his father to prison. Hugh Plunkett moved through the same rooms, knowing his testimony could destroy the only family that had ever valued him. Both men understood that loyalty and truth might soon demand opposite choices. The pressures that crushed them were invisible to outsiders. Visitors saw only the limestone walls, the manicured gardens, the trappings of impossible wealth. They did not see two men trapped between duty and survival, between what they owed the past and what the future demanded. February arrived cold and grey over Beverly Hills. Inside, Greystone, despite the fireplaces and the thick walls and the expensive furnishings, something felt wrong. The house was too new to have ghosts, but it had tensions thick enough to choke on. On February 16, 1929, those tensions would finally break. Saturday night, February 16, 1929. The California sky hung gray and heavy over Beverly Hills, winter clouds obscuring the stars that usually glittered above the city's wealth. Inside Greystone, the Doheny family moved through their evening routines in a house still so new that its rooms had not yet settled into the rhythms of daily life. Lucy tended to the children. Servants prepared for the night. Ned moved through the limestone corridors, perhaps restless, perhaps contemplating the testimony that loomed in his father's upcoming trial. Around 9:30 that evening, Hugh Plunkett drove through the estate's gates. The gatekeeper recognized him immediately and waved him through without question. Hugh had been coming and going from Greystone for years, first overseeing its construction, then living in the guest house on the grounds. He possessed his own key to the mansion. He belonged there, or so everyone believed. He let himself into the house and climbed the grand staircase with its hand-carved banisters. He made his way to the east wing, to one of the guest bedrooms on the second floor. At some point, he used the mansion's internal telephone switchboard to call Ned, who was elsewhere in the vast house. He asked if they could talk. Ned agreed. What happened next exists only in fragments, in contradictory testimonies, in official stories that changed with each retelling. According to Lucy's account, given hours after the deaths, she and Ned had visited Hugh at his apartment earlier that evening. They had urged him again to seek rest, to enter a sanitarium for his own well-being. Ned had made what Lucy called impulsive remarks that upset Hugh. The visit had ended badly. Hugh had returned to Greystone afterward, agitated, determined to continue a conversation that perhaps should have been left alone. Around 11 o'clock, Lucy heard what she described as furniture being overturned. Or perhaps it was a gunshot. Her testimony would shift on this point. She did not investigate the sound. She did not call the police. Instead, she telephoned the family doctor, Ernest Clyde Fishbaugh, and asked him to come immediately. Fishbaugh arrived within minutes. Together, he and Lucy walked toward the guest bedroom in the east wing. Outside the door, they found Hugh. He appeared distressed, holding something. The doctor would later describe his demeanor as agitated, shaking, his jaw clenched. Hugh told them to leave, to stay back. Then he retreated into the bedroom and slammed the door. They heard a gunshot. And then another. Fishbaugh rushed forward and opened the door. The scene inside would be seared into Beverly Hills history, into newspaper accounts, into decades of speculation and theory. Ned Doheny lay on his back near an overturned chair, wearing only his underwear and a silk bathrobe. Blood trickled from his mouth and from both sides of his head, where a bullet had entered the back of his skull and exited through his face. He was still breathing, barely, his life draining onto the floor of his magnificent house. He would die within minutes, never regaining consciousness. Hugh Plunkett lay face down several feet away, spread-eagled on the carpet. A massive pool of blood had formed beneath his face. A single gunshot wound to his head had killed him, likely instantly. An unfinished cigarette remained trapped under his body, still smoldering. Near his hand lay a Colt Bisley revolver, a gun that Hugh kept in his quarters above the garage. Fishbaugh checked both men. One already dead, one dying. Nothing could be done. Only then, 3 hours after the first shot was fired, were the police finally called. When investigators arrived in the early morning hours of February 17th, they found a scene that raised more questions than it answered. 2 men dead in a guest bedroom, a gun with no clear fingerprints, witnesses whose testimonies seemed rehearsed, too neat, as if they had spent those 3 hours before calling the police, deciding what story to tell. The physical evidence told a confusing tale. Ned had been shot from behind, the bullet entering the back of his skull. How does a man get shot from behind during a face-to-face confrontation? Hugh lay face down with the gun near his hand, suggesting suicide. But the angle of his wound, the position of his body, the missing fingerprints on the weapon, all these details invited doubt. Within 24 hours, the Los Angeles District Attorney, Buren Fitz, announced the official verdict: murder-suicide. Hugh Plunkett, suffering from mental instability, angry over being denied a raise, or perhaps upset about being urged into a sanitarium, had murdered Ned Doheny and then turned the gun on himself. Case closed. The speed of the conclusion was remarkable. No thorough investigation, no difficult questions asked. Witnesses were interviewed, but their contradictions went unexplored. The guest bedroom was cleaned almost immediately, repainted, sealed. Physical evidence disappeared into police custody and remained suspiciously minimal. The district attorney who announced the verdict so quickly was the same Buren Fitz who had received $75,000 in loans from Edward Doheny Sr. The newspapers carried the story for exactly 36 hours before it vanished from the front pages, buried beneath other news as if by agreement. The word among journalists was that Edward Doheny Sr. was too big to monkey with. No one dared push too hard against a man who controlled politicians, judges, and district attorneys with equal ease. But in the silence that followed, theories multiplied like shadows. Some believed the official story. Hugh, mentally unstable, pressured by the upcoming trial, his marriage dissolved, his position in the family uncertain, had snapped. He had killed the man who had given him everything, and then killed himself in despair. Others pointed to Ned's gun being the murder weapon. If Hugh had brought his own revolver from his quarters, why was Ned shot with Ned's weapon? And why was Ned not buried in Calvary Cemetery with the rest of his devoutly Catholic family? Catholic cemeteries did not accept suicides. Had the family known something about Ned's role in the deaths that made Catholic burial impossible? Still others whispered the theory that would haunt Greystone for generations, that Ned and Hugh were more than friends, more than employer and secretary, that their relationship was the kind that in 1929 could not be spoken aloud, could not be acknowledged, would destroy a family's reputation if revealed, that one of them had wanted to end it, that the other refused, that violence erupted from love turned toxic. And then there was the darkest theory, that a third person had been in that room, that Lucy had discovered her husband with his male secretary and in a rage had shot them both, or that someone had been hired to silence two men who knew too much about the Teapot Dome scandal, two witnesses whose testimony could still destroy Edward Doheny Sr. despite his acquittal. The truth died with Ned and Hugh on that February night. Whatever words passed between them in that guest bedroom, whatever emotions drove them to violence, whatever secrets they shared, all of it was buried as thoroughly as the physical evidence that disappeared from police files. Two men entered a room at Greystone. Only silence came out. And that silence would echo through the mansion's halls for nearly a century. A mystery sealed by money and power, by a family desperate to protect its name, by a city that knew when to look away. Within hours of the tragic deaths at Greystone Mansion, the machinery of power, money, and influence moved into action. In the world of the Dohenys, a family whose fortune was built on oil and ambition, the answer was simple: bury the tragedy, protect the family name, and ensure that nothing tarnished the empire that had been built. As the hours passed, and the bodies of Ned Doheny and Hugh Plunkett were still warm, the wheels of justice moved quickly, but not to uncover the truth. Buren Fitz, the district attorney of Los Angeles, was not a man inclined to question the official narrative. He was too deeply tied to the Doheny family, who had, quite generously, loaned him $75,000, a sum large enough to influence even the most resolute public official. By dawn on February 17th, the investigation was all but decided. The case was closed. A murder-suicide. Hugh Plunkett, the loyal secretary turned erratic, had killed his employer, the heir to one of California's most significant fortunes, and then turned the gun on himself. The official conclusion was handed down swiftly, and with it came the silence that would envelop the mansion for decades to come. The physical evidence at the scene was disturbingly thin. The gun that had killed both men, an odd Colt Bisley revolver, was found near Hugh's body, but it had no fingerprints. It was an anomaly that would have raised questions in any other investigation, but here it was overlooked. The scene itself was carefully managed, scrubbed clean. The guest bedroom, where the tragedy had unfolded, was repainted, sealed off, and the evidence of the violence that had occurred there was erased, as if the act of repainting could somehow wipe away the truth. The room, once a place of life and conversation, would be transformed into a sterile, untouched space, a silent witness to a story no one wanted to tell. The coroner's inquest was conducted with alarming speed. The conclusion, given the family's influence, was a mere formality. No thorough examination of the conflicting witness statements was made. The testimonies from those present, most notably from Lucy Doheny, Ned's wife, who had called for the family doctor but had not immediately alerted the authorities, were inconsistent, almost as if they had been prepared in advance. The contradictions in their stories were never reconciled. No one dared to press too hard. In a case this delicate, with so much to lose, the authorities were content to let the official verdict stand. At the time, the actions of the district attorney, the coroner, and the authorities seemed almost orchestrated. It was as though everyone involved in the investigation, from law enforcement to the local press, was in a conspiracy of silence, a shared understanding that the sooner the case was closed, the sooner everyone could move on. In fact, the whole of Beverly Hills seemed eager to forget what had happened behind the closed doors of Greystone. Money, as it so often does, swept aside uncomfortable truths and left only the faintest trace of the violence that had shaken the family. What was striking, however, was not just the rapid conclusion of the investigation, but how thoroughly the incident was buried. The death of two men, one an heir to a fortune and the other a trusted employee, would typically be the subject of months of scrutiny. But in this case, it became a mere footnote. The district attorney, whose actions were already questionable given his ties to the Dohenis, made no attempts to dig deeper into the numerous inconsistencies. He closed the case within a matter of days. The press, which had initially jumped on the story, quickly moved on too. In a city like Los Angeles, where scandals were a dime a dozen, this one was easily overshadowed by the other dramas of the day. The investigation was wrapped up with the tidy bow of a murder-suicide, and that was that. This, however, would not be the last time that Greystone would harbor secrets. As the months passed, the mansion itself stood in quiet defiance, the grand limestone walls refusing to yield up their truths. The Dohenis, with their fortune intact, moved on, leaving the house to stand as a monument to their power and wealth. But the truth of what happened on that cold February night would never be fully buried. The people involved, those who had witnessed the deaths, those who had rushed to protect the family, would carry the weight of that unspoken truth for the rest of their lives. In the years that followed, whispers would grow, theories would multiply. But for now, the official story had been written, and it was one that suited the family and its immense influence. Yet in the corridors of Greystone, there was an unsettling silence, a heaviness in the air that could not be ignored. The mansion, grand as it was, had become a tomb of secrets, its walls concealing a tragedy that no amount of money or power could ever truly erase. What really happened that night in the guest bedroom of Greystone Mansion? The official story was clean, neat, and swift. Hugh Plunkett, in a fit of despair over his crumbling mental state and mounting pressures, had shot Ned Doheny before taking his own life. But as often happens when the truth is buried too quickly, whispers grew louder. Some believed in the official narrative, while others saw something darker beneath the surface, something that would never fully be uncovered. The first theory, the most straightforward one, suggested that Hugh had snapped. After years of loyal service to the Doheny family, Hugh was on the brink of losing everything. His personal life was in tatters. His marriage had ended the year before, and he was increasingly isolated, his mental state deteriorating. The pressure of the Teapot Dome scandal, which had brought the Doheny family to the edge of disgrace, weighed heavily on him. His duty to his employer, Ned, was now a burden he could not bear. But did that really explain the events of that night? Could the same man who had spent so many years by Ned's side suddenly become a cold-blooded killer? Some found this idea difficult to believe. The relationship between the two men had been close. Some might even say, too close for comfort. In the quiet spaces of Greystone, behind closed doors, some suggested their bond may have crossed boundaries not meant for public knowledge. This brings us to another theory that lingered in the shadows. What if the connection between Ned and Hugh had been more than just employer and employee, more than just friends who had fought side by side during the war? The idea of a romantic relationship between the two men was a sensitive topic in the 1920s, a time when such matters were whispered about, hidden in the dark. But those who lived close to them saw the signs, an unusual closeness, a shared intimacy, a bond that seemed to go beyond professional courtesy. Could it be that Lucy Doheny, Ned's wife, had discovered the truth? Theories began to circulate that she had confronted her husband and Hugh in the hours leading up to the tragedy. Perhaps she had discovered something in their relationship that was not meant to be known. In this version, the confrontation turned violent, with the two men fighting over what could not be admitted in public. The murder-suicide theory might have been fabricated to cover up something far more sordid, one that, if revealed, could ruin the Doheny name for good. Yet another theory emerged, one that raised even more troubling questions. What if there had been a third person in the room that night? Someone whose presence had been conveniently erased from the story. Some pointed to the strange absence of concrete evidence and the rush to close the case. Could someone else have been there? Someone the Doheny family wanted to protect at all costs? The missing fingerprints on the gun, the contradictory witness statements, and the hasty cleanup of the scene. These were all pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit. If we accept this theory, it's not hard to imagine the powerful motivations behind such a cover-up. Edward Doheny Sr., the patriarch of the family, was a man who would go to great lengths to protect his empire. By this time, the scandal surrounding the Teapot Dome affair had already begun to tarnish his legacy. Could he have been involved in a way that would further protect the family? Would he have been willing to use his considerable influence to make the truth disappear? Despite the speculation, the most chilling theory of all was the one that would never be spoken aloud. What if, in the end, the deaths of Ned and Hugh were not the result of one man's desperation, nor a forbidden love affair, but something far more sinister? Could the deaths have been orchestrated to silence two men who knew too much? If Ned and Hugh had been the only witnesses to the dark deals surrounding the Teapot Dome scandal, perhaps their deaths were part of a larger conspiracy, a means to ensure that nothing from the past would ever come to light. The theories continued to swirl in the shadows. Some held that the official story was exactly what it seemed, tragic, but simple. Others believed there was more to the story, that Greystone's grand walls concealed the truth. Whether it was a crime of passion, a cover-up, or a calculated move to protect powerful interests, no one could say for sure. The mansion itself remained silent, its cold stone walls hiding the answers to questions that no one dared to ask. The mystery of what really happened that night would never be fully resolved, leaving behind only the haunting echoes of secrets that would never see the light of day. Edward Doheny Sr. had built an empire and bought his son a palace, but there was no wealth in the world that could bring Ned back. When the news of Ned's death reached him, Edward, the Titan of oil, appeared to crumble. The patriarch of the Doheny family, whose empire had once stretched from the deserts of California to the oil fields of Mexico, seemed to age a decade in the span of a few days. His son, the heir to his fortune, was gone. The grief was too much to bear, and even his vast fortune could not ease the weight of loss. Edward made his way to his son's funeral, his body physically present, but his mind far away. The man who had spent a lifetime accumulating wealth, power, and influence found himself powerless in the face of death. It wasn't just the death of his son, but the unraveling of everything he had built. The Teapot Dome scandal had already cast a long shadow over the Doheny name, and now the tragedy at Greystone only deepened that darkness. In the days that followed, Lucy Doheny too was unable to find solace in the mansion that had once promised security. The memories of the violence, the loss, and the unanswered questions began to haunt her. Soon she could no longer bear the silence of Greystone. The house that had been meant to protect her family, to shield them from the harshness of the world, had instead become a prison of grief and uncertainty. She left Greystone, unable to live in the house that had witnessed the violent end of her husband's life and the tragic loss of her son. The mansion, magnificent as it was, stood cold and empty. Greystone, once a symbol of the Doheny family's grandeur, had become a monument to their tragedy, a place where power, wealth, and influence could not shield them from the harshest of realities. The walls, once alive with the laughter of children and the grandiosity of social gatherings, now stood silent, bearing witness to a legacy marred by loss, mystery, and unanswered questions. In 1965, the Doheny family made a decision that would forever change the fate of Greystone Mansion. The estate, once a symbol of unimaginable wealth and the home of a family whose influence had stretched across the nation, was sold to the city of Beverly Hills for a mere $1,100,000. The price was a fraction of its true value, a transaction that seemed to signal the family's desire to rid themselves of the mansion and all the painful memories it held. The sale was a sharp contrast to the grandeur of the estate. Greystone, with its towering walls of limestone, vast manicured grounds, and lavish interiors, had once represented the pinnacle of California's Gilded Age. But now it stood as a silent witness to a family's fall from grace. The mansion, once a place of laughter and social gatherings, had become a place where tragedy had struck and secrets were buried in the shadows. With the city's acquisition of the estate, Greystone began its second life. No longer a private residence, it was transformed into a public park, a filming location, and a venue for special events. The grand halls that had once echoed with the footsteps of the Doheny family were now filled with tourists, curious to see the mansion that had been, the backdrop to so much scandal and mystery. The mansion was used for countless films, weddings, and community events, its rich history both a point of fascination and a silent reminder of the past. Despite the mansion's transformation into a public space, it remained haunted by the ghosts of its former inhabitants. The guest bedroom where Ned and Hugh Plunkett had met their untimely end was remodeled beyond recognition. The walls that had once witnessed the violent end of a family's future were repainted, sealed off, and forgotten, at least on the surface. But for those who knew the mansion's history, Greystone's beauty only partially hid the darkness beneath. Even as the mansion became a place of public enjoyment, the weight of its tragic past lingered in the air. Greystone, once a fortress of power and family legacy, had entered its second life, where its beauty and charm were admired by many, but its deepest secrets remained buried within its walls. The mansion would continue to stand as a testament to both the grandeur and the haunting memories of the family that had built it, never fully able to escape the shadows of its past. Greystone Mansion stands today as a grand testament to the wealth and ambition of the Doheny family, but it is also a silent reminder of the things that money cannot protect: peace, truth, and protection from tragedy. The mansion, with its imposing stone facade and sprawling grounds, has endured for nearly a century. But beneath its grand exterior lies a history marred by secrets, betrayal, and a tragedy that money could not prevent. Standing at the gates of Greystone, one is struck by the beauty and majesty of the structure. The limestone walls, weathered by time but still holding firm against the California sun, rise in stately grandeur. The mansion commands attention with its Gothic Revival architecture, arched windows, and ornamental stonework. It is an architectural marvel, a symbol of the wealth and power that the Doheny family once wielded. Visitors flock to its grounds, admiring its beauty, taking photographs, and marveling at the storybook-like setting. Tourists, wedding parties, and film crews all share in its elegance, oblivious to the dark past that lingers beneath its surface. Yet beauty is not innocence. The truth of Greystone Mansion is more complex. The mansion was built not just to impress, but to protect, a fortress of wealth, grandeur, and family legacy. Edward Doheny Sr. had envisioned Greystone as a monument to his success, a place where his son Ned could live in safety and luxury, far removed from the hardships of the world. Greystone was meant to shield the Doheny family from the outside world, offering security and comfort in the face of an uncertain future. Yet in the end, it could not protect them from the tragedy that would unfold within its walls. When the Dohenis moved into Greystone in the fall of 1928, the mansion was a shining beacon of their wealth and accomplishment. Edward had spared no expense in building the house, and every detail, from the intricate carvings in the woodwork to the imported Italian marble floors, spoke of a family that had achieved the American dream. Yet, as the family settled into their new home, the dark shadows of their past began to creep in. The Teapot Dome scandal had already begun to tarnish the family's name, and the pressure of the ongoing investigations weighed heavily on Ned Doheny and his closest confidant, Hugh Plunkett. Inside Greystone's grand halls, the Dohenys enjoyed the comfort that only extreme wealth could afford. They lived in a world apart, insulated from the troubles of the day. But despite the luxury that surrounded them, something was deeply wrong. The mansion, for all its beauty and craftsmanship, could not shield them from the storm that was brewing. Greystone was a beautiful facade, hiding the cracks beneath the surface. Edward Doheny had worked his entire life to create an empire. But now, with his son's life hanging in the balance, the one thing money could not buy was the one thing he needed most: peace. The tragedy of February 16th, 1929, was not something that could be fixed by wealth. Despite the mansion's grandeur, the family was shattered, and the secrets within Greystone's walls became impossible to ignore. The tragic deaths of Ned Doheny and Hugh Plunkett would shatter that facade. The official story was quickly sealed as a murder-suicide. Hugh, mentally unstable and under the pressure of the Teapot Dome scandal, had killed Ned and then taken his own life. The investigation was rushed, the evidence was buried, and the case was closed within days. The family, desperate to protect their name and their legacy, buried the truth along with their loved ones. Greystone's walls were scrubbed clean, and the mansion moved on, its beauty intact, but its soul forever tainted. The mansion, however, remains a lesson in the limitations of wealth. Money, power, and influence had been unable to shield the Dohenys from the tragic events that unfolded within their home. No amount of money could bring Ned back. No amount of wealth could erase the questions and suspicions that lingered after his death. Greystone, for all its grandeur, could not protect its inhabitants from the forces of fate, nor could it safeguard the truth. The family's fortune, built on oil, could not secure them from the destructive forces of scandal, mental illness, and betrayal. In the years since the deaths, the mansion has stood as a monument to both the family's triumph and its downfall. It remains a physical representation of the empire Edward Doheny built, a place where he tried to build security and permanence for his family. But in the end, Greystone's beauty only highlights the tragedy that struck the Doheny family. The mansion is not just a symbol of wealth. It is a symbol of the fragility of that wealth, the vulnerability that even the most powerful families face. Greystone is now owned by the city of Beverly Hills and serves as a public park, a filming location, and a venue for special events. Tourists come to admire the mansion's beauty, unaware of the secrets that lie beneath the surface. The guest bedroom where Ned and Hugh died has been remodeled beyond recognition. The walls that had once witnessed the violent end of a family's future were repainted, sealed off, and forgotten, at least on the surface. But for those who knew the mansion's history, Greystone's beauty only partially hid the darkness beneath. Even as the mansion became a place of public enjoyment, the weight of its tragic past lingered in the air. In a way, Greystone's transformation into a public space mirrored the transformation of the Doheny family itself. The public facade of wealth and influence remained intact, but the wounds beneath were never fully healed. Greystone, like the family it represented, moved on from its tragedies. But those who understood its history could never forget the darkness that had once consumed it. The mansion became both a place of remembrance and a place of erasure, a location where the past was acknowledged but also carefully swept away. Greystone, once a fortress of power and family legacy, had entered its second life, where its beauty and charm were admired by many, but its deepest secrets remained buried within its walls. The mansion would continue to stand as a testament to both the grandeur and the haunting memories of the family that had built it, never fully able to escape the shadows of its past. As visitors walk through the halls of Greystone today, they may marvel at the architecture, the craftsmanship, and the history of the mansion. They may admire the gardens, the grand staircase, and the sprawling grounds. But the mansion's beauty is not enough to erase its past. Greystone's walls, its floors, and its ceilings hold the echoes of the lives that were lived there, lives filled with ambition, love, and loss. The mansion stands as a reminder that beauty and power can only mask the truth for so long. Some secrets are too powerful to be buried, and some questions can never be fully answered. Standing in front of Greystone, one is left to wonder what truly happened behind those walls. What secrets were hidden in the rooms that have since been remodeled or sealed off? The mansion's grandeur cannot hide the weight of its past, and the questions surrounding the deaths of two men in that guest bedroom will never fully fade. The mansion's walls hold the answers, but they remain silent. What really happened in that upstairs bedroom on February 16th, 1929? Was it a tragic crime of passion? Or was it a cold-blooded murder driven by something far more sinister? The official story may have been settled quickly, but the lingering doubts, the theories, and the unanswered questions continue to swirl in the dark corners of Greystone. If you find this story captivating, click the like button and subscribe to the channel for more gripping stories of mystery, history, and the secrets that time has tried to bury. Stay tuned as we uncover more hidden truths behind the grandest landmarks in history.